Hey, what's going on, Commish? I see you, man. What it is? It's the Commish radio show. Radio show. What's the Commish radio show? Radio show. What's the Commish radio show? Radio show. What's the Commish radio show? Radio show. I see.
Still.
What's up, Commish? Just going Miss Polly Jam, the fashionista. Okay. And I'm Young Strip on there, man. Young Strip, nice. The Commish radio show. Radio show. What's the Commish? Tune in.
Okay, we're going. I know 10 seconds. Dig this. You got mics. You got all the mics.
I ain't getting good.
Mic levels right. Commish Radio Show back again for another Saturday, on the Fishbowl Radio Network. We want to make sure that everything is running up and, right, Commish, like, do we have good audio out there? Let me know out there, do we have good audio out there in Commish Nation land? And also would like to know whether or not we have a video. Do you have a good video of us? Because right here in the studios, we have a still picture of us, and I keep looking at myself, looking back at me, and I'm not amused. So I want to make sure that we do have a good video that is going on. So send me a shout out. Whether or not you can see us. Make sure that we sounds great. Judge Pamela Luther says we sound great. She was the one who said last week that my microphone wasn't right, and I wanted to make sure that we are able to have that microphone level right. Now, speaking of having everything right, again, we want to make sure that Stephen Mason is able. That's right, Stephen Mason's running for mayor of Cedar Hill. We want to make sure that we are able to have the video where you're able to see us. My producer is not with me right now that I could go ahead and tap on the shoulder and say, hey, look here where you're at. But meanwhile, we are going to go ahead and let you be the producers of the Commish Radio Show. So give me a comment right there on the Facebook Live feed, in which you will be able to tell whether or not we actually have this streaming video. So do we have a streaming video on this? All right, we have streaming video, but it's very disconcerting that I'm only looking at myself, and I like to look at myself. All right, there we go. So that being said, we are here live up close and personal, the Commish Radio Show way, and I'm able now to look at the video here because I am an artist and I'm sensitive about my stuff. Also, speaking about being an artist and being sensitive about things, we do have artistry in the Dallas City Council. So we have with us today, we have a lot of city council candidates that are running. I believe you're running in District 5, if I'm not mistaken. Ms. Ruth Torres is running in District 5. Let's bring you up to the mic. And tell us about yourself. So far, what do you think of the show so far?
I've listened to you before, of course. Commish, I know that you stay engaged on issues really affecting folks here in the city as well as on a national level. So, I enjoy listening.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, tell us about you and why are you running for office?
Okay, great. Well, I'm a single mom and a businesswoman, and I am very much interested and committed to fighting for District 5's improved safety, our fair share of economic development, and improved quality of life. And so that's what I am fighting for District 5. And that's why I'm running, because it is very clear that District 5 has been absent of anyone really advocating for that district in regards to these issues.
Now, you're running for an open seat, or is this an incumbent involved in this seat?
This is an open seat.
Now, where's the district at?
So District 5 includes Pleasant Grove, Urbandale, Piedmont Saline. So this is all this is the southeast Dallas, so east of Fair Park. So if you keep going east, that 175 is the westernmost boundary line, and extends out to where Balch Springs begins, and to the north of us would be Mesquite. So, well, actually no, the District 7 is above that. So Forney Road is the northernmost piece of it, and above that is District 7, and then you would hit like I-30. So below I-30 and east of 175.
Now, that's a large district, and I want to know, why would you want to run for office for city council?
Because, I became very involved with a number of issues affecting the city of Dallas. Affordable housing, I was involved in that project for about 2 years. It's just for one example, but there's a number of local issues that I've been involved with, and watching the votes that happened on city council, I became increasingly frustrated with folks who were elected to represent the people of their district, and their votes did not reflect that representation from my perspective. And so that's why I said, you know what, we need some people on this city council that will actually listen to, engage with the people in their community, and make the decisions that are in the best interest of everyone in their community.
So you feel like previously that hadn't been happening?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, especially in District 5.
Especially in District 5, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, what were some of the votes?
So for example, the vote on the statues, the votes on
the Confederate statues?
Yes, on the Confederate statues, the votes on economic development.
Okay, let's go with the Confederate statues. Since I was involved in that one, I wanted to have it removed, and it was removed. Your city council person, he voted. How did he vote?
He was adamant about retaining those. And it's my understanding that there was also a background move to try to get the Robert E. Lee put back up.
Right,
and so that very much frustrated me. When I look at, first of all, when those went up, and that whole argument, those went up before women or minorities even had the right to vote. And so when you talk about things that are on public lands and public funding to support them, they should be about unity. And so I'm not just for take them down. There are people who wanted them, so buy them. And I don't think that this cost is reasonable for how much money it is to take them down. I think there's some folks who would be very happy to join in and help to remove those things safely. But those who want them should buy them and take them to private lands. And those funds should be used to put up works of art that are focused on mutual respect and unity. So if you remove something, you have a vacancy there. We need to move from the past and into the future, and the future that we want. And we need a city that has not just symbols of unity, but actuality to implement policies that are inclusive in nature, not just symbolic words on a paper, but when it actually comes to making decisions in line with that policy, we flip out and we drop the ball. That's a problem for me.
Now, one of the issues that have come up, and I'm looking at the web feed as well, it says Rick was absentee on the vote that day, indicating that he was absentee on that day. So was he absent on that day?
No, there was several votes on those statues, and I have so this was first before the council. I want to say this was first on the council months ago, like maybe August of last year. And then it was put on hold for a while because they were trying to sell the Robert E. Lee, and they said no. There was 4 things on the ballot that particular time: was removing the statues, the Robert E. Lee was a separate one, renaming of the streets. So it was really there was work done by a committee that had provided multiple recommendations. And so the council was reviewing those recommendations, and it had it all grouped. They had a number of items grouped, and then they decided to break them down and have votes. So that is a vote that the current councilman was there for and voted for. They did not want names changed. They didn't want statues removed. None of those things. And then there's been multiple votes on this, and the current councilman has.
I love it when politicians never acknowledge the other person's name. They go like, the current councilman. Well, we all know you're talking about Rick Callahan, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now. Well, one of the things, now going back to my question, because I wanted to make sure that I interact with people on the web and make sure that you guys have any questions. Feel free to go ahead and put them in. But we were talking, before we went on the air, we were talking about a variety of issues, among them crime, home ownership. Let's talk about some of those in sequential order. Let's talk about crime. Is there a crime issue in the district?
Yes. District 5 is significantly challenged with crime rates, and I think that citywide we have an issue. There's been complaints on response times, and there's arguments back and forth on that. But I do know for a fact that DPD and the police chief has been very diligent on being responsive to those issues. So I am currently on police chief's community board. We meet once a month with the police chief, and we have 3 agenda items that we're working on. And the first one is improving response times, and that's something that DPD and the chief takes full credit for, because they are working on it and it is improving. Is it where it needs to be? No, but there is improvement that is being made, and so we want to recognize those efforts, and we need to support them as a community, so that when we're calling the police, we look at the police every time we have a problem. There are problem solvers, and we call them, and that's great. But sometimes we call them for things that have nothing to do with the police, and so that's taken up our phone line. So we want to make sure that when we're calling the police, it's for something that is really a police matter. And we can support them in that way. We can support them by making sure that they have the resources that they need to be responsive. And part of that is the recruitment and retention. We lost a lot of officers with the whole pension issue. And it also happened at the same time that we unfortunately had a number of officers that were killed. So that was a double whammy in the 16-17 years. The pension was probably the biggest hit, according to what officers and the chief told me, that the pension was the biggest hit, and they lost over about 450 officers, I think, between 2016 and 2017. So that's a huge hit. And so I know that they are working very diligently on that. I think their average hire is gone from 16 to about 22 a month, and they're working on hiring more and retaining more officers, so that that can be addressed. But I'm also very much looking forward to the KPMG staffing study to really give us an objective standpoint on understanding exactly what the staffing level should be, what our response times should be, because when we look at response times, they have one flat amount, regardless of where in the city, how far, traffic times, any of that. So, if you say, if you're calling the police at, between 4 and 6 p.m., for example, there's going to be a lot of traffic. It's going to take longer for the officers to get there. So those time frames, there's no differential on the time frames on the response times that we measure officers by, based on time of day or distance of where things are occurring and things like that. So we want to make sure that they have reasonable objective metrics, and that is also part of educating the community that they have a priority system. So if something really is, somebody is already hurt or is in immediate danger of being injured, you need to make sure that you convey that, so that that's rated as a priority 1. So they rate things priority, I think, 1 through 4 based on what the caller says. And so officers, of course, they're going to go to the things that are the higher priority. So I know there's plenty of argument out there on an opinion, which is great. I want to hear that from listeners and from residents, but I also like objective data, and so that's why I very much look forward to KPMG's resulting report from their staffing studies, so that that we can make some real decisions and some really understand operationally what needs to happen.
Now, making a real decision, before we get ready to cut the YouTube video feed, I want to go ahead and ask you a question regarding Citizen Police Review Board.
Okay.
Are you in favor of the Citizens Police Review Board with subpoena powers? Because right now we do have one, but all they do is just take notes and say, hey, look, the police were really bad to me today, and they go like, Jim, police said we're bad, X, and then that's it.
Okay, so I've been very involved in that process. I've attended multiple ones. I've actually sat through an entire hearing, and I hear and understand both sides. And I really look at this from a balanced approach. And I want understand that the father of two of my daughters is a police officer. I understand police officers. I understand what they go through, but I also understand the needs of this community. We can't keep doing things the same way and expect a different result. We have to recognize that there's problems here. In the same way that anybody who's ever been a victim of domestic violence, there's a pattern there, and there's this process there where, and we have to recognize that there is a problem within our black and brown communities in being afraid of officers, and there's for a reason. That's nationwide. That's not saying something specific against any of our individual officer. I know we have plenty of good officers, but we need to have that oversight. Anybody who's in a position of authority and power needs that accountability, and we need that accountability at City Hall and all these positions, City Hall, county, all these government positions, and all these positions of power. So in the same way that the city is accountable to the people for that pension plan problems and for giving the police the resources they need, police should also be accountable to the communities that they serve. And so I am in support of the recommendations, which I know that the coalition, the board, the existing board, and the police chief, and a number of community groups have worked on diligently. I think that is a collaborative effort. This is not something that is against the police. It is not. It is to ensure transparency and improve the relationship between our officers and our communities of color, because all of these things intersect. The relationship with the community and how officers feel also about serving those communities. So I think it's a real issue that needs to be solved, and I think that this is an important piece of the puzzle. It's not going to solve all of it, absolutely not. But I do think that it is important that transparency and accountability is there for all people in positions of authority.
All right. I think that pretty well answered that one. Let's go ahead and go to a couple of breaks, and then when we come back, we'll conclude with the interview. We are also being streamed on YouTube. Let's go ahead and cut the YouTube.